there. And my name is Lindsay Stencel, and welcome back to Startups Streamlined. This is our second year in a row doing this, and we're lucky enough to be joined today once again by Marc Miner, who is a senior counsel in our corporate transactions and securities group with focus on investment management and business litigation. So today we're going to discuss the dynamic changes driving the crypto world. If you live under a rock, maybe you don't know about some of the issues that have been unfolding over the past, let's call it 6 months. But it's been a wild ride. And today we're going to cover the fundamentals of how blockchain technology drives crypto and how booming industry intersects with monetary policy and regulatory authority over buying, exchanging, trading platforms, and similar things in this space. So today we're going to touch on the advantages and risks of managing some of these financial assets and the red hot enforcement guardrails that sort of are needing to and are popping up everywhere. But as always, we encourage you to drop questions into the chat if you've got any, and we'll address those as they pop up, and we'll rock and roll from there. And so with that, let's get started. Marc, it is a pleasure to have you join us once again here today.
I'm excited to be here. I chuckled when you said you have to live under a rock, because for anybody that doesn't even follow this space, it seemed like lots about crypto was all over the news, basically over the end of the year into this year. And it's like trying to drink from a fire hose to take it all in. But, we're going to try to cram as much as we can into our short talk today.
Yeah. So we only have 30 minutes, and that's not nearly enough to cover the trauma-rama that we have unfold here. But to level set with folks that are out there, I think a lot of people have a tendency to sort of cross-pollinate in their brain blockchain versus crypto, and they think those things are inherently the same. And so can we maybe first lay the groundwork for what is blockchain and then what is crypto? So why don't we talk about what is blockchain first?
Sure. I know we talked about this before, so we won't spend a lot of time on it, but this is an important distinction for the uninitiated. Blockchain is the fundamental technology on which cryptocurrency moves and is translated and transacted. So the blockchain is really it's a network of technology that allows computers and the people that are mining through them, we'll talk about mining, to agree on a given set of principles and they place those agreements on what we call a ledger. And they do this through a series of proofs. It's basically cryptography, which is a fancy word for a whole bunch of game theory. And that information is stored on the blockchain. The principal things you need to know about it are that once it is created, it can't be changed. Everybody uses the fancy word immutable ledger, so that the information, once the parties agree what the transaction is, it's placed on this ledger. It's in chronological order. It cannot be changed. And most controversial is that it was intended essentially to be a methodology to agree that is anonymous. And so there are people who are involved in blockchain. Their only role may be to help prove that the thing that happened on the blockchain happened. And so one of the principal uses of blockchain is for two parties to agree on a thing of value and trade those things of value in a digital way. And we refer to that as digital currency and hence cryptocurrency, because it all takes place through these cryptographic and game theory proofs.
Got it. So super helpful. So then let's talk about specifically what is cryptocurrency then, because you hear people who are like, I have, 5 Bitcoin. And a year and a half ago, that was a lot of money. And maybe now it's some money.
So,
Walk that
I'm not going to sneeze at it. I mean, it's not that it doesn't have any value, it still has value.
Yeah.
But cryptocurrency is digital currency. It is value that's created. Most people hear about the digital currency and wonder how it has value. There's a big fight over whether or not any of these are securities or commodities. Let's stay with the safe interpretation of most of the industry, which would call it a commodity. You still need a thing of value to purchase into the digital currency. Or if you think of it as a commodity, or a security, money has to be exchanged in order to acquire that thing of value. And so cryptocurrency is a digital methodology of transacting business. So you can use it to buy and purchase, to purchase and sell things, or to actually trade those coins themselves, because, as you said, they really exploded in value. Much like, since we're using the commodity analogy, the way that people may purchase or trade gold coins or other coins and trade them for things that they want to buy or to hold for investment.
Got it. And so that kind of touches into a little bit of digital currency, if you will. But I think then one of the other topics that sometimes needs a definition is an NFT. And so can you walk through for people, what does that mean? And I will even push one step further to say, what is a utility that you see that being useful for? Because I know a lot of people were buying like random pictures of pandas, digital pandas for a little while, and now like they're not. And so why not? So let's talk about that.
So I liken the analogy of the definition of NFT to art. We hear a lot about it in pictorial representations of things. These also, over the past 6 months, have experienced some wild changes in value, even the most valuable things. We tend to think of a Mona Lisa as being unique, and an NFT in a way is unique, and that it would go up in value. Crypto, for example, is still down probably another 6,000 or 7,000 just since the beginning of the year. But what is the thing? The NFT is a unique digital identifier. It cannot be copied. It cannot be substituted. It also, like the ledger, cannot be changed in any way. It basically is a certificate of ownership of a thing, of a picture, very often a video, recordings, and artwork. And so the receipts for this ownership are also placed on the blockchain. So blockchain is used for lots of record keeping. It is widely used, and my view is that it will continue to grow. Lots of people in the industry regard it to be a superior audit trail. And for that reason, it has lots of applications in business, in record keeping, even in finance, and we're starting to see those two things come together.
Sure.
One of the ways that crypto is used is to transact things of value. That's where we get this digital coin or cryptocurrency. And then NFT is the trading of pictorial things of value. But the thing that you own is really a proof certificate that you have this thing and no one else has one.
Interesting. Okay, so what's the difference then for folks who are still getting, level set here, the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's a litany of other coins and tokens out there too, but let's talk about the difference between those two.
Yeah, so Bitcoin and Ethereum are just names of two of the leading types of digital currency. Most people who are interested in, or many people who are interested in holding for investment or purchasing or dipping their toe in, are usually going to be dealing with a platform or an exchange that has Bitcoin or Ethereum to buy or sell. They are similar in that they are both digital currencies. Bitcoin is the one that was first adopted and has been accepted as a medium of value on various exchanges, both by the SEC. It was the first adopted. And the other currency, Ethereum, won't get too deep in the weeds about the distinctions between the two, but both of them are constantly proving their value by external people, these miners that I talked about, and the frequency within which you can update that information is a bit different on the two exchanges. A lot of people would say that Ethereum created a more efficient and a faster way to prove your thing of value, but Bitcoin got out the gate and is far and away the largest digital currency that is traded across the two exchanges. So it's not a commercial for either. We're agnostic here.
You're fine. This is interesting.
There are many others. There are many others too, as innovations come into play that help to make the transactions and the proof of the thing of value faster.
Okay, and so I recently read an article, it was by Goldman Sachs, and they were saying, hey, even though Bitcoin is out ahead of Ethereum, or yes, out ahead of Ethereum, Ethereum is actually the superior coin, and on which many more things will be built, used, exchanged. And I do know there are even some law firms that say, hey, I will accept Bitcoin or Ethereum as a form of payment. So how do you kind of think about Ethereum versus Bitcoin in that context? And do you agree with Goldman Sachs? And no, this is not a commercial for Ethereum nor Goldman Sachs.
Right. So, first on the scene and out the gate, like I said, Bitcoin became the name that was synonymous really with digital currency. Again, what I think has continued to happen is that the next big player entrant, Ethereum, found ways to more efficiently determine and prove the value of the currency itself, and republish that information in a way that has less volatility. They're all volatile in that it is difficult to predict, because we don't have decades and decades of market data to be able to predict whether they go up or go down. And the trading in those markets is opaque. This is one of the reasons why regulators are trying to force some of this activity onto regulated exchanges. The CFTC was first out the gate, and the SEC was not far behind. But anybody that's going to consider dipping their toe in here should look at the differences and the distinctions between those two markets and the features that may be most important to them.
Interesting. Okay, so kind of shifting a little bit then, one of the questions people ask a lot of times is like, will I retire early if I buy much crypto, or will I lose my shirt? So let's talk about what occurred with the FTX exchange kind of collapsing on itself, and then which then resulted in a huge dip in Bitcoin and Ethereum related values. So talk to us a little bit about what that was like and what that means. And it sort of ties into also this regulatory piece, because you had people who were using Slack channels that were saying things like, this is our, this is how we're screwing the SEC and we're avoiding, whatever rules and regulations. So let's talk about what happened with FTX and then why it's relevant to the rest of the world out there, because I do see this becoming part of, a lot of companies, things that they have to think about rolling forward.
Sure. Now, the two largest and most interesting features of both cryptocurrency and the trading, which is now taking place mostly on the exchanges, are by design. The individual who's known as the grandfather of all this activity envisioned a world where you didn't need bank intermediaries to buy and sell things of value, that people could do them independently through an exchange where one individual exchanges something, no bank is ever involved. And so that taking place away from 150 years of what we now refer to today as Treasury and regulatory authority, designed to protect the integrity of the markets and the individuals who hold the thing of value, to create and make sure that there is stability in that thing and liquidity in that thing, now has an entire platform that's built away from that. And then on top of that, the notion that it is not the province of the government to know when I'm changing these things of value also said that it would be anonymous. It is an immutable ledger. It has to be proven out that individual A and individual B have agreed on the exchange of the thing of value. But those changes take place and neither knows who the other is by design. And so regulators feared, and rogues and thieves also figured out, that it was a perfect platform to transact for all types of nefarious activity, for terrorism, etc. And so regulators come rushing in. But there are lots of legitimate and proper uses for Bitcoin, for cryptocurrency and digital transactions, and the regulators really, I think, were on their heels. The market was adopting, people were interested in innovation. And up until, last summer or so, I thought that the regulators were really going to be forced to, just in order to keep up, to adopt some of these things. And along comes some examples of bad actors. Unfortunately, Sam Bankman-Fried probably loomed as large as anyone in trying to get a regulatory framework really built around FTX, which was his company. And so the model for the adoption of an exchange was really built was being offered at or lobbied to build around his ecosystem and the thing that he had built. He was incredibly young, the big player on the market, and merely because of a financing arrangement he had with a competitor, it was revealed that the emperor had no clothes. And when they started fighting over the value of the company, regulators came looking in, and they found what they refer to as a giant Ponzi scheme. As a result of that, in December, Sam Bankman-Fried was indicted by the Southern District of New York on 8 counts of indicted on 8 counts, including conspiracy, securities fraud, money laundering, you name it. Most principally is that his hedge fund, which was incidentally run by his 20-something-year-old girlfriend, was the counterparty to lots of transactions. And much of the money that went through that institution, they say, is completely gone. This completely decimated any trust that people had, certainly regulators had, in approving an on-ramp for this industry. And the market has continued to tumble ever since. So he's the poster child at the moment.
Yeah. So because of this type of scenario, right, do you see the SEC or another regulatory body kind of wanting to paternally swoop in now, like they did in 33 and 34 with the Securities Act, because, a lot of times the theory, right, is like we have to protect, people who can't make or perceived to not be able to make their own decisions or proper decisions on these things. And we want to protect widows and babies from like losing all of their money, right? But the whole point of this, if you really think about the crypto markets, is to be able to move things of value without people knowing your business. That kind of also runs in the face of a lot of American culture. So I'm curious on how you think this is going to shake out.
Well, as I just mentioned, if you had asked me not even a year ago, I would have said that the train had left the station and we were really on the precipice of some major regulatory concession to allow for this entire market. But unfortunately, incidents like SBF and FTX dominate the market. So it causes everybody to step back. What does the future look like? I think that one thing that lots of folks are following very closely right now is the change in Washington. So the SEC recalibrated its stance. Obviously, the CFTC and the SEC were fighting over whether or not what they were dealing with was even a security or a commodity. And so the industry was really winning that fight and saying this should all be regulated by the CFTC. But exchanges like STF and the activity that they were engaged in is clearly in the SEC's purview, they would say. And so it put a lot of wind behind their sails. And so I think we can expect really forward-leaning regulatory input from the SEC. At the same time, the chairmanship of the House Financial Services changed. It was Maxine Waters for many years. And now it's Representative McHenry out of North Carolina, and I think that he is signaling serious and meaningful reform in this area that's going to create actually pathways. He moved the cryptocurrency from more like a think tank to a subcommittee, and subcommittees are there to pass laws. And he's appointed people to oversee that we know have spent a decade or more in House Financial Services matters. And so people who are on the Hill are telling me that the first thing that they're going to attack try to address is capital markets and get some more capital markets improvements. And then right on the heels of that will probably be stablecoin. And the establishment of stablecoin is important because most, or not most, but a lot of people who were critics of the market in crypto were saying that the biggest issue is that because it's opaque, because we do not have these views, that it is wildly speculative, and for that reason, too risky for the average person to take advantage of. Stablecoin, by its definition, is creating some stability to the digital currency by pegging it to something else that we can follow and that we can both regulate and monitor, like fiat currency or other commodities, and pegging it to those things take the legs out of a lot of the detractors from cryptocurrency generally. And it looks like it is on the short list of this House Financial Services committee. And of course, they have 2 years, right, to see how much headway that they can get. But because the market continues to grow, I think that lots of people are saying that there is some real opportunity for some bipartisan cooperation and agreement to make pathways possible for the growth of cryptocurrency.
Okay. Part of me wants to go down a rabbit hole and ask if this was treated more as a commodity rather than these were treated more as a commodity rather than a security because of the lobbying efforts that's out behind it. What's your take? What's your hot take? there.
Um, I, I think that the ink was almost dry on the agreement before everything blew up, and the lobby had virtually won on the idea that this was going to be a commodity. But the cascading series of events, including the tumbling of Bitcoin, spectacular losses in value, both to mostly small holders, some institutional players, but institutional holders had not yet really fully adopted it. Some stuck a toe in the water, but they were really waiting to see other institutions really adopt it. And like I said, I think that there was so much market noise that did a disservice to the industry itself. I still fully say that my personal belief is that blockchain is a superior audit methodology to many others, and it's going to continue to grow. And I think even if financial service will prove to be something of tremendous value, and the overwhelming majority, like many other industries, of players in this space are honest and hardworking and looking to build another avenue for mediums of transacting things of value. But like I said, the calamities will dominate, and regulators will look to fill a hole. So I don't believe that what's on the horizon is the type of creation in a regulatory scheme like the fall of the stock market crash of 29 that created the SEC in the first place.
Right.
But I do think that a whole suite of regulatory initiatives specifically targeted at digital currency is on the horizon, and we're going to see them at a fast clip pace, regardless of who's in the White House.
Okay.
Or who controls Congress.
All right, we only have a couple minutes left here, so we talked about quite a few things that you and I had, kind of ping-ponged around. But lastly, we'll call it 6 or 7 years ago, the initial coin offering, the ICO market, was all the rage, and I saw so many folks hit my desk that were like, "We're gonna do an ICO," and people are saying, like, "Invest in my ICO." What happened there?
The IPO market had lots of legitimate players again, but it was very attractive. We always see this at moments when there is a new product or service that is really hot. There are lots of offerings that pop up. The worst of them, were complete frauds, right? They're going to sell you an interest in the Brooklyn Bridge. They're going to sell you an interest in something that does not exist at all. And regulators were still trying to get their hands around all of this. And so they took action against the low-hanging fruit, which were those fraudulent cases. Then there was all sorts of puffery in offerings that did exist, and they were the next to be taken out. But they were so numerous that it really killed a lot of, I'd say, the immature market for coin offerings. So while they are still around, there's always some shaking out that happens in the marketplace. And the ICO market, the initial coin offering market, has fallen 90% over just 4 years ago.
Oh my gee. Okay, well, so I guess more regulation to come. What I learned here in the last 30 minutes is like regulation abound. It's forthcoming. But still probably a very viable manner of exchanging something of value, and the immutable ledgers for contracts, financial services, etc., are probably here to stay. So with that was a fast 30 minutes. So that's going to go ahead and conclude our discussion for today. You probably noticed, but this webinar was recorded and it will be up and available for you to take a look at if you just want to keep listening to it over and over again on our Thompson Hine YouTube channel. So please go ahead, like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you can get all of the updates as they roll forward. We obviously want to thank you for attending this here today, and a special thank you to Marc for sharing all of his expertise. So Marc, thank you so much. You're a star, and I always appreciate when you join here. Next month, we're going to discuss all things intellectual property. Well, not all things, but 30 minutes worth of things. So be sure to join us there for that. So that's going to be relevant whether you're a large corp, mid-sized corp, or you're just getting started. We all have things we need to think about in terms of intellectual property protection. But that will conclude it here for us today. You'll receive a brief survey when we're done. It's like 3 questions. We ask that you fill that out so we know what the next topics you'd like to hear about are. And as always, thanks for joining us. And Marc, thank you once again. Have a great day.
Lots of fun. Thanks.